Hi, good morning. I'm here doing Facebook Live at 10:30, just so you know, and going over the videos. But I'm trying to do little informative videos, as you will. And we talk a lot about the hips. I am working on a pelvic course. I'm actually working on a mini course on pre-walking and pre-standing as well, and understanding the structure of the hips. This one is a little bit rare, and it's hypoplasia. Hypoplasia means incomplete, right? So we have hypoplasia of the hips, and I'm quickly going to just go in there and zoom in. I know there'll probably be a glare, but it's in the posts. Here, I'll go close here, right? So what that means there is you can see there's no little knob. There's a big gap in with the hips. But what's not noted on the report is the ischiums are also incomplete, right? And then also that the femur heads have grown straight. With hips, it's very similar to arcs and arches, right? We have variations. So our hips come out and come around, right? And they go in, but there's a support that goes through and goes around into the other hip. So when you're walking, it's much more like this. A lot of people like to produce biotensegrity. Biotensegrity is the most immature way that you can think that a hip works ever. That's not the way the human body works. You can look it up. They do these models of hips and walkings, and there's other methods that talk about the straight lines of the legs. It's not straight. It's not how the way the body works. You have to look at the structure of movement. With the hips incomplete like that, you have to be under direct care of the doctor and someone that has worked with it before. There should be no load variations right now through the pelvic regions, right? It's one of the reasons why you're seeing a low tone effect. The low tone is because the hips aren't there, right? When I'm moving and countering, any of us can do this. The counter should go through the pelvis. One of the main reasons why most of you are here, because that countering is not happening, right? Doesn't happen with the eyes, right? You get that? Oh gosh, I'm dizzy just doing that. And then you don't have it through the hips. So you want that counter of the eyes to each opposite pelvic region within the hips. And then the hips, not only is a ball and socket, right? But you have the pelvis is behind, and the pelvis should do this. I just worked on a Zoom. And when the pelvis is able to articulate, then you have the sacrum in there articulating. I know that's hard for most of you. That's how I visualized. Yes, I can be like Tony Stark and just boop, boop, boop. People don't see those movements and they're unable to feel them. I do both. I can feel them in my work or not feel them because it's not happening or not presenting. When the hips are completely incomplete like that, I would suggest also, and again, I'm not a doctor, but I would suggest it, MRIs. Why? Because my next thing is the ligaments and the collagens, if they're there. That's not even a subluxation. The femur head is not formed. But what's also, again, not noted, excuse me, is the legs have gone straight, right? Because there's no tension, and that's where I'm concerned also about the ligaments and the, quote, lack of head control that I'm seeing. You want to look at the full picture. That's why I need to see a video of a child. And plus, when I suspect certain movements that aren't making sense to what should happen due to just basic structures, whether you're low tone or high tone, your structure should perform in a certain way. And when I don't see that, that's where, I'm not asking for a visual diagnosis or hip x-rays, to bust your chops. I'm seeing certain things, especially with the rollover, throwing of the leg and what's going on, because that's what's happening. You're getting now more of a throwing a ball or a centrifugal force. And that's where, again, the milestone creations are becoming so difficult. So I would follow up with that, with something like that, with, again, for a more complete picture. The MRIs, you're looking to see, again, that the ligaments of the hips, if they're there or not, and then the collagen input. There are rare genetics that have where collagen and ligaments just aren't there to the way they need to be. Again, rare cases. This is not a standing structure. You need a more complete picture. We don't want to put the child in a position that there's going to be an emergency where again, the weight of the structure is going to separate more. And you can't even say separate of the hip. So I learned this with one little munchkin. Subluxation of the elbow. Subluxation means that they came apart. And that's the key. Being born like that, since they were never together, there's no subluxation. So even though the hips were out, the knee were out, the feet was out, the elbow were out, the jaw was out, it wasn't, the doctors were literally yelling, saying, but it's not subluxation. Okay, but, we have these kind of things. But again, the collagen and the ligaments need to be addressed, and that needs to be. If the ligaments are not there, that is, again, going into a different form of genetics and what we're looking at, and where they are and where they're at, so we can start moving where we can move the structure with the connective tissue and where we can't. This might not be a surgery option, but this might be a surgery option. If there's ligaments and collagen and going on in there and the fascia is more connected, then hips can be created, and I would suggest it, because that's your development. But at the same time, if they're not there, putting in the artificial hips, you still might just have the legs that aren't addressing the movement the way that you need to. It is a life-changing conversation that's going to be happening. But when do we panic? When we don't have options or solutions to our problems. So I'm just presenting one area of the hypoplasia to be looked at for this particular child. It needs to be addressed with a fuller picture. Right now, you're sort of in that spiral of unanswered questions. Not all the questions will be answered right away. I would assume, again, the MRI might be a little bit hard to get. They might go with genetics first, because if they have the genetic predisposition, if that's what it's going into, hypoplasia can suggest variations of dwarfisms, because, again, the bone's not forming completely. But again, this is a conversation. Has the bone capped off and it's soft tissue in between? You're still at 11 and a half months. But again, this is where Google can be your best friend and it can be your worst friend. Take every bit of information. You're going to need a calendar. This can take up to 3 to 6 months to get a complete answer, depending on, can you get genetic testing in your country for this rare of a condition? Where is that conversation going to go? So before you start spinning your wheels, even just listening to me, when you are presented with hypoplasia, you want the geneticist on your team, you want the neurologist on your team, and you want the orthopedist. The conversation of the three need to be involved for, again, a greater team and a solution. Now in the U.S., you're not going to get a team like that. You're going to have a person here, a person there, and a person there, and then hopefully they talk together. That's why in the U.S., if you add in a person like me, like, I was watching this lady on YouTube. Yeah, don't say that to your neurologist, because they just get, they get offended that, again, the way that they want to present is not the way that you're hearing it. I'm looking at the hypoplasia and the femur, again, straightening of the legs, as well as the incomplete ischiums. Even sitting up will be very hard, because when you have a sit bone that's open, now they say it could complete by age 7, but we have a bone deficiency. That bone deficiency on the radiologist report is only noted in the form, that's a femur, this is where my Latin's bad. The top of the femur heads, sorry, someone's going to correct me. It's on the report. Isn't incomplete, but also the ischiums, the sit bones, are incomplete. So even just to sit a child and you've got that bone poking in, now again, that bone should complete by 7, but you should have femur heads now. I mean, so having the femur heads missing, again, this is where you need a team to find out where's the bone structure going to be incomplete. It might even warrant a more complete x-ray of the whole system to see if there's any more gaps in the information. I hope this helps. And again, this is a hard one. It really is. And I mean no disrespect by putting this out there, but I learned from Graham, like they told me Graham was going to die in 6 months, and then it was a year and 3. I kept hearing this. I called it Disease of the Month Club, because they'd get a negative in, and it's like, oh, now it has to be SMA. Get a negative. Oh, it has to be cystic fibrosis. Get in. And one time my neurologist said, like, why aren't you worried? And I said, listen, if you don't think I'm worried, I'm the one who's coming here. None of you called me up. But I said, you tell me what's wrong with my son and I'll deal with it. So that process is a hard wait sometimes. For us, it was 3 years. I said, when you tell me what's wrong with my son, I'll deal with it. I said, but preparing for my son's death when you're just guessing, that's not working for me. And he's going to turn 18 on Wednesday. So good thing that didn't happen. If he doesn't take his medicine, yes, that could happen. He can die from an infected finger because he has no protection from bacteria. But at least, again, we finally have a solution and we dealt with it. We're lucky that he has a medication that works for him. I totally am sympathetic and empathetic that that's not always the case. But it is hard starting to get these answers in, but you're not in the back door yet with everything. I really wouldn't I have to stress again, even though I'm not a doctor that way, I'm a movement specialist, but from my experience, I would be getting an MRI, at least of the hip regions, to see what the qualities are within the muscle structures, ligaments, and the collagens, if that can be addressed better to get a more complete picture. But like I said, they might do genetics first, but it really, in India, genetic testing isn't as advanced as they would here in the U.S. And that's what I think people have to realize too, that we're on Facebook. You might be in a country where you're getting top notch, or in your area. Like, I have the best ophthalmologist. If you don't come see me, come to see Dr. Cassidy. I mean, the guy's just amazing, and I'm sure I mean, probably like 80% of you who've come to me for intensive have gone to see him. So even if you just tag him up, I mean, he's probably one of the best in the world, right? As far as, and just giving you the answers. He saved my son's life. He found the infection. All these guys I was going to, he was the one that found the infection, where everybody else was looking at genetics. So when I go to other places, like I was just dealing with Vancouver yesterday with a Zoom, it is so frustrating. Like, I want to just pick this child up. They can't come here because of the borders and the COVID. You know what I mean? And here's a child that needs help. Not major help, but enough help, and not getting the answers. And again, to be approaching a 6-month-old with teller cards, which are the black and white stripes, it's, what are you thinking? Like, that's not a physical examination. And it was done by an assistant, and then the doctor read it. So again, you think you're getting the right answers, and it's not always the case. But anyway, I didn't mean to go off topic, but when you're looking at the hips, they're in certain cases, it is going into a result of a condition that's showing up there. It's your avenue to defense, right? It's not one more thing that's wrong. So look at it more as, okay, I have more of a plan now. Now I have more information where I'm going. There's going to be hard days with that, but at the same time, I always felt I had a plan. When people said, "Oh, is your son going to get married?" "Oh, I'm on 2 to 5." Like, I had my windows of where I was dealing with all of this, and I hope it helps. Thanks.